what starts as a game can quickly turn into a nightmare, because some doors once opened can never be closed.
It was a cold, rainy night in November when Emily, Sarah, and their friends gathered at Sarah's house for a sleepover. They were teenagers looking for thrills, and someone had the brilliant idea to bring out an Ouija board, a cheap one they found at a thrift shop. It was old, the edges chipped, with the word mystifying oracle barely visible through the faded ink. "This is just a game," Sarah laughed, setting the board in the middle of the circle. The others agreed nervously, but there was a tension in the room that none of them could quite shake. They dimmed the lights, lit a single candle, and placed their fingers lightly on the planchette. The air seemed to grow heavier with every passing second. "Is anyone here?" Emily whispered. Her voice trembled, but she forced a smile, glancing at the others. At first, nothing happened. The planchette stayed still, and the friends began to joke about how fake the whole thing was. But then it moved, slowly, deliberately. "Who's pushing it?" Sarah snapped, looking around the circle, but no one admitted it. The planchette spelled out Hello. "Hello?" Emily whispered. "Who are you?" Again, the planchette moved quicker this time. "Jakk. Jake?" One of the friends asked. "Are you a spirit?" "Why, yes." They laughed nervously. It seemed harmless at first. The spirit claimed it was a boy who had died young in a car accident. But as the session went on, the answers became unsettling. "Where are you?" Sarah asked. The planchette paused, then spelled Here. The candle flickered, and a draft of cold air swept through the room. The girls froze, their laughter silenced. "That's not funny," Sarah whispered. "Who's doing this?" No one answered. Emily, trying to keep her composure, asked the board, "What do you want?" The planchette spelled YOU. Suddenly, the candle went out, plunging the room into darkness. A shriek erupted from one of the girls as something cold brushed against her arm. Sarah fumbled for the light switch, and when the room was illuminated, they all gasped. The Ouija board was gone. "Where is it?" Emily demanded, her voice shaking. They searched the room frantically. The board was nowhere to be found, but the planchette lay in the middle of the circle, pointing to the word goodbye. That night, none of them could sleep. Emily swore she heard faint whispers in her ear, too low to understand, but chilling nonetheless. Sarah's room felt colder than usual, and shadows seemed to dance in the corners of their vision. Over the next few days, things got worse. Emily's family dog refused to enter her room, growling and barking at the empty doorway. Sarah's mirror cracked without explanation, the fractures forming the shape of a handprint. Terrified, the friends sought help online. They found similar stories, encounters with a spirit named Jake, who wasn't as friendly as he first seemed. Desperate, they decided to destroy the planchette and forget about the experience. But when Sarah tried to burn it, the flames wouldn't touch it. The wood remained unscorched, as if resisting their efforts. Eventually, they buried the planchette in the woods, far from their homes. The activity stopped, but none of them ever forgot the fear they felt. Years later, Emily swore she saw the planchette again, in her attic, covered in dust, as though it had been waiting. It started on a Friday night. My friends and I were bored, sitting in my dimly lit basement. Someone suggested we try the Ouija board. I laughed it off at first. It was just a cheap board from the toy store, nothing to take seriously. But when Rebecca dared me to play, I couldn't say no. We sat in a circle, the flickering glow of a single candle casting long shadows on the walls. I remember how heavy the air felt, like the room itself was holding its breath. We placed our fingers on the planchette, giggling nervously. "Is there anyone here?" Rebecca asked, her voice low and dramatic, trying to set the mood. Nothing happened. For a moment, I almost rolled my eyes at how ridiculous we must have looked. But then, it moved. Slowly, the planchette slid across the board. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Who's messing with it?" I snapped. No one answered. The planchette stopped on yes. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stay calm. "What's your name?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The planchette began to spell, Daniel. "Daniel?" Rebecca said, raising an eyebrow. "What happened to you?" "Died. We froze. The candle flickered violently, almost going out. I looked at my friends, hoping one of them would burst out laughing and admit it was all a joke. but their faces were pale, their eyes wide. I swallowed hard and asked, "How did you die?" "Fire." The word sent a wave of unease through me. "Okay," I said, trying to shake it off. "That's enough. Let's stop." But the planchette didn't stop. It moved again, faster this time, spelling N-O. Rebecca's voice trembled as she asked, "What do you want from us?" The answer came quickly, "Yo, you." The candle suddenly went out, plunging the room into darkness. I felt something cold graze my arm, and I jumped, scrambling to my feet. "We're done," I said, reaching for the light switch. But the planchette moved one last time before I could turn the lights on, spelling S-T-A-Y. The lights came on and everything looked normal, except for the board. The planchette was resting on "Goodbye," but the letters around it looked warped, as if the board had melted slightly. We packed it up and swore never to touch it again. I thought that was the end of it. But that night, as I lay in bed, I heard a faint scratching sound. It was coming from my closet. My heart pounded as I got up to check, my hands shaking. The closet was empty, but the scratching continued, now coming from under my bed. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences escalated. Lights flickered in my room, even when the rest of the house was fine. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to hear whispering, low, incomprehensible, but unmistakably there. The worst was when I found the Ouija board back in my room. We had left it in Rebecca's house, tucked away in a dusty corner of her basement. Yet there it was, sitting on my desk like it had never left. I burned it that same night, watched it go up in flames, the smoke curling into the air like a dark hand reaching out. For a moment, I felt relief. But even now, years later, I can't escape the feeling that something stayed behind. Every so often, I still hear the scratching. And when I'm alone at night, I swear I hear a voice whisper my name. It was a typical Friday night. My cousin and I were at his house, bored out of our minds. We'd heard about Ouija boards from some friends at school and decided to try it. I still don't know why I agreed. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was just the thrill of doing something taboo. He pulled out an old board from the attic, dusty and worn, the kind that looked like it belonged in a horror movie. "This will be fun," he said with a grin. We sat on the floor of his bedroom, the lights off, a single candle between us. I thought it was ridiculous, but there was something about the way the shadows danced on the walls that made the room feel wrong. "Ready?" he asked, placing his fingers lightly on the planchette. "Sure," I said, forcing a laugh. "Let's see if your ghosts are real." We started with the usual question, "Is anyone here?" For a moment, nothing happened. I was about to mock the whole thing when the planchette moved, slowly dragging itself to yes. My cousin looked at me, his face pale. "You moved it, right?" "No," I said, my voice quieter than I expected. "You did." We stared at each other, neither willing to admit the truth, that neither of us had pushed it. "What's your name?" I asked, trying to keep my hands steady. The planchette slid across the board, spelling A-N-N-A. "Anna," my cousin said. "What do you want?" The response came quickly, F-R-I-E-N-D-S. I tried to laugh it off. "See, it's just some harmless spirit." But deep down I felt uneasy. The air around us seemed heavier, colder. "Where are you?" my cousin asked. The planchette moved again, H-E-R-E. The candle flickered violently and I felt a chill run down my spine. I looked over my shoulder, suddenly aware of how dark the room was. "That's enough," I said, pulling my hands away. "Let's stop." But my cousin didn't let go. "Anna, are you alone?" he asked. The planchette jerked violently to N-O. My heart raced as he asked the next question, against my protests. "Who's with you?" The board spelled H-I-M. "What does that mean?" I whispered, but the planchette didn't move. Then the candle went out. The room plunged into darkness. I heard my cousin gasp, and suddenly I felt something, a cold, heavy pressure on my shoulder. "Turn on the light," I shouted, fumbling for my phone. When the lights flickered on, the board was upside down, the planchette resting on goodbye. My cousin's face was pale, his hands shaking. "Did you feel that?" he whispered. We threw the board back into the attic that night, swearing to never touch it again. But the strange occurrences didn't stop. At night, I would wake up to the feeling of being watched. My cousin said he saw shadows moving in the corners of his room. One night I heard soft, faint laughter coming from the attic, high-pitched like a child's giggle. The worst moment came a week later. I was alone in my room, scrolling through my phone, when I saw it. A reflection in my window, a pale face, eyes hollow and black, staring at me from the darkness behind. I spun around, but no one was there. That's when I knew. We hadn't just invited Anna, we'd invited him.